That'll do, pig. That'll do. So today, I want to tell you all how much I really like Pig. Like, pigs in general are cute, don't get me wrong. But no, I mean the debut film from Michael Samowski, starring the Lord of Memes himself. A film that I think everyone thought would be one film, but turned out to be something completely different. A brief explanation of the plot, and I think you'll know what I mean. Nicolas Cage plays a secluded truffle forager called Robin, who lives in the woods of Oregon with a truffle pig. Once a man of the city, he now spends his days working alongside his trusted pig companion. His little human contact save one weekly visit from a young supplier he sells truffles to named Amir, played by Alex Wolff. Robin's comfortable life in the woods is interrupted one night by junkies who ambush his hut, knock him unconscious, and take his pig away. Waking up in a pool of his own blood, he picks himself up and vows to get his pig back. Along with the help from Amir, he journeys back to the big city he left behind to find the only thing he holds dear to his heart. Yeah, you wouldn't be alone if you were thinking of another meme legend, John Wick. Upon first look, it undeniably shares traits from this cult classic action film. You know, a man broken by the separation of his animal and his hunt to find the people who stole him. And I mean, attaching Nicolas Cage to the project with his energy seemed like the ingredients for a good old revenge flick. I'm happy to admit this is not the kind of film I was expecting at all. It deals with the concepts of loss, love, father acceptance, and legacy. It's a mature directorial debut from Michael Samowski. He certainly struck gold his first film in, and I can't wait to see more from him. I will admit it did take me a while to get into the flow of the narrative and understand where they were going. I don't think this is a flaw with the ultimate film though. It all has to do with my general expectations of what Pig was going to be and how it was thrown out the window. You think that the film is going to be leading you down quite a generic path for this type of movie, but no, it actually turns out to be a much more mature and surprisingly heartfelt film. I bet if I watched it again knowing where the film goes, I wouldn't feel the same way about the early moments of the film. Not to say there's nothing memorable about the early moments of the film. For example, I really love the visceral nature of the ambush sequence where they take Nicolas Cage's pig. You know, the way we never really get a clear shot of the instigators, everything's kind of in the dark. The way Cage's character Robin gets beaten up, and the way the sound design is used to complement the feeling of dread. The transition to the next morning with Cage waking up in the pool of his own blood and having to pull his face out of the goo of the dried up blood on the floor. It's quite impactful. But yeah, I feel like after this it sort of meanders a bit, just because I thought it was going to go into a typical revenge plot scenario. For example, there's this whole underground fighting sequence, which I still think was an unnecessary addition to the film. Thankfully, the film starts to really pick up after this scene, and definitely by the time of the restaurant scene, which yes, everyone has been talking about. And yes, I totally understand why people are going on about this sequence. It's a total revision of what a confrontation in a revenge film is and what you would expect Nicolas Cage to do in that scenario. Instead of relying on pure violence, it's an intense conversation. It's such a wonderful moment that tells so much about the world and the character and his legacy, you know, his reputation in this big city that he left behind to pursue this life in the woods, and how he really only wishes the best for people, even though he is on a vengeful journey to get his pig back. I don't want to say any more without getting into spoilers, but yeah, it's a very touching scene and I totally understand why people are going on about it. And Jesus, what a moment for Nicolas Cage to shine as well. This would have to be probably one of the most controlled performances I've seen of Cage's ever. Such a breath of fresh air when Cage has been really hamming it up this last decade with a lot of straight to DVD movies. But yeah, he really does drop that for this film and it works wonders. Look, don't get me wrong, I like over-the-top Cage's The Next Person. You know, I loved Mandy, that was a whole heap of fun. And Mum and Dad, actually, I think is a highly underrated film. I haven't heard anyone talk about that for some reason. I think that's quite a fun film. But as for his turn in Pig, the Cage Meister really suits this dramatic turn and it gives a very lovely performance. And it's good for the majority of the film. His character's kind of left a bit of a mystery, and as the film goes along, we start to learn little bits and pieces about him. And I especially find it touching when Cage sort of takes on the role of the father figure role when he's interacting with the character of Amir. Alex Wolff does a decent job as well as the secondary character of Amir. Although not as rich of a character as Robin, the writers clearly had respect for the character to give him his own personal arc and story. There's a really interesting character detail throughout the film where his character is listening to classical music in the car, a sign of him attempting to gain respect and to come off as a lot more smart and more sophisticated than he actually is. Not every film that would go to this form of detail for their secondary characters, so it's very much appreciated. And while I feel some may be disappointed by the eventual conclusion to the film, I personally wasn't, and I thought they went in the right direction. In regards to the technical aspects of the film, it's not a movie that's going to blow you away, but for what it is, it does a good enough job. There's a whole lot of elements about this film I can't really discuss without going into spoilers, so here's just going to be a brief little spoiler warning just in this segment here. So I really like how the film messes with your expectations of Nicolas Cage being this hitman character. No, he's actually just a very famous, very well-respected cook. I really respect how the culinary profession is shown within this film. There's a really good attention to detail in regards to the profession of cooking and the art of the profession. So yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed Pig. It is a film that is growing on me every time I'm thinking about it. I might do a future video about it, but upon first viewing, yeah, I would highly recommend it if you want a human drama. If you want a pure John Wick revenge film, it's not going to be your cup of tea at all. It is slow, it is more about characters, it is more about the relationships of these characters. I really enjoyed this. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.